So I can speak to that if you'd like. I mean, we do a lot of media preservation. So, we started off our channel with reviews and such, as many YouTubers do, but we moved on to gaming archaeology and preservation. And with that comes a lot of other media as well. So, for example, like you mentioned, VHS or Laserdisc. So there's a couple of things that we do. So we will take VHS tapes that maybe haven't been preserved to the best quality, and we'll try to do the best possible conversion to digital, clean them up, upscale them, denoise, that kind of stuff. And then we'll also do, content that maybe hasn't been seen before. So maybe it was an internal VHS tape at Nintendo, and it has some trailers that maybe nobody's seen before, or very few people have seen before. Or it may be a laser disc that was playing in a kiosk, right? And that you go to your Target or whatever retail store and you'd press the button for whatever particular trailer you wanted, and then you would skip to the chapter on the laser disc, and then it would play that. So basically, the goal is for those is to try to capture them the best possible quality. So you see here we got some of the equipment. My mic's in the way, but laser disc player, HDMI out, VHS, broadcast quality VHS player. That's an S video. S video out. S that's PAL, and it. Basically, we try to get the best possible out from the unit itself, and then from there we try to clean it. And it's really been a treasure trove for different like beta content, right? So oftentimes you'll see an old trailer of Zelda or whatever, and it's such low quality that a lot of the detail is lost, right? Along those lines, actually, I have a that far. So this is an N64 Nintendo source book right here, and this is kind of similar. It's not VHS, obviously, but it's media that I wanted preserved, so I scanned it. And what a source book is, it's kind of like your business Bible. But why that's important is because it has a bunch of weird stuff in it, like unused box art for Pokemon, for example. I don't know if that's visible because it's kind of getting a little bit dark.
We can see it real good.
Okay, cool. So I actually just shot an episode on this today, went through all of this, realized my mic was picking up a bunch of static, redid it. But basically, the idea is that you want to try to find these old documents and tapes and whatever, and preserve them. I'll show you one more thing here real quick that you may have interest in. If I can get to it here. So here we go. Here's an unused, I've never seen before, logo for F-Zero. And it kind of has almost like frayed at the top at the X.
Yeah.
So it's kind of bizarre. It's I don't know if it's
was that the base game or the 64 DD
this is the
expansion?
The base game. So this is all US stuff. It doesn't mention the DD at all. But yeah, so basically it's like people were kind of just in marketing were pulling assets from their computer, whether they be old or new or whatever, and just trying to compile something together for their retail partners. And oftentimes the things that they compiled together were like unused or beta or so it's like there's like strange areas that we cover basically in terms of preservation, and that just happens to be one of them is old documents.
Yeah.
And marketing materials as well.
It's always nice whenever you come across stuff like that, and as you mentioned, that whoever's putting it together, maybe all of their images and stuff isn't quite as up to date as it could be, so it leaves a lot of really cool stuff like that to find.
Yeah. And I think people are just working off of whatever they happen to have on their machine. Like at my work, like I work in, I'm not gonna get too detailed, but I work in pharmaceuticals. So basically,
are you Dr. Mario?
No, I'm not, unfortunately. But I'll put together an ad or something, and I'll work with another guy to put together an ad, and then maybe he pulled an image off the computer that isn't like the 100% up to date version of that image. Then you have to correct it. It's like the same thing, right? It's just like any company. People are just pulling together stuff from wherever, and maybe it didn't get past the inspection.
So before we get to the main part of this section, where Tony's going to be talking about some of his favorite discoveries. Now, are they going to be discoveries or stuff that your channels made, or are you going to talk about some that has been discovered outside of your channel as well?
Both actually, both, because this year's been particularly interesting, obviously with the Giga Leak and everything.
Yeah. All right. Before we get to that, Daniel, you haven't said anything yet. So
I was just too enchanted by that book. I was like, oh my gosh, this is really cool stuff.
For everyone who, sorry,
no, go.
I was just gonna say, for everyone who doesn't know, Hard for Games is one of our favorite YouTube channels, just because of all of the beta stuff that they do. They're one of the, because you do so much stuff now, it's hard to just call you guys like just. What was this one series that you had? Beta questing?
Beta questing.
Yeah.
That was how I found Tony's channel as well.
Yeah.
Was through those old beta questing videos. Those were probably like a good, I don't know, close to a decade ago now or something like that.
That's back in the day before we actually had betas of games coming out every week, and we had to go with a Game Shark and actually dig in. I'm teasing you in the chat, by the way, when you said I'm one of your favorite channels. I say this to all the guys.
See, the key is we only invite channels that we like.
Well, there you
go. So that we can, without lying.
It's like when you go see a band at concert and they're like, this is the best town on tour yet, but then like you only go to your favorite cities. That way you don't have to lie to everyone.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so that's how I found you. And I was going to ask for Daniel to let everyone know how he found you, in case they might be interested in some of the content that he likes on your channel. So was there a specific video that you found at first, Daniel, or?
I don't remember how I came across it, but yeah, it was those old Ocarina of Time beta questing videos, which is great in two facets, because it's really cool, unique information from eras gone by, and the other as well is that Tony and the gang they're just hilarious people as well. So it's genuinely entertaining to watch at the same time. Another one I remember, because I'd seen those old ones, and then I hadn't seen anything for a while. Maybe I hadn't dropped a sub at that point yet, and then I came back for your Star Fox 2 video before the Star Fox 2 was actually officially released on the Super Nintendo Mini Classic Edition, and that was a really cool one to see, because that was like one of those mystery games that had a lot of publicity and then vanished out of thin air, and no one had seen or heard anything of it really. So it was sort of this eye-opening, cool. And then of course they're like shoving cake in each other's mouths and stuff. So they clearly have a lot of fun with it, which I think is part of the charm. Maybe not as much cake shoving these days, but still there's this this air about you guys that's a very genuine and entertaining to, like, you feel almost like one thing you're learning stuff and you're getting info, and on the other hand it almost feels like hanging out with your buddies at the same time. So
I've always felt that. I appreciate the kind words first off.
Of course.
I always felt like, we got some flack in the past for like not taking we'd have like a prototype or a dev unit or something, and people would be, not everyone, like a very small minority in the comments would be like, how dare you, like, you're drinking a beer like in the presence of, you know what I mean, like, or it's like, you're joking around, just give me straight numbers and ones and zeros and then let me filter that into verbiage, so I've always felt that especially like, because our content, it's technical, but it's not super technical. We take basically, like, we have a lot of experts who really understand the stuff, and then we dissect it and kind of present it in a way that's more like consumer friendly. And I don't think that needs to be extremely serious. I think that should be fun to watch because it's a YouTube video.
Yeah.
A YouTube video about video games too, right?
Yeah.
It's all meant to be fun.
Yeah. So it's like, you can't take yourself and your content so seriously. Obviously you want to do a good job of it. So there's taking it seriously in one respect, and then there's taking it seriously as in like, you want to seriously do a great job and present it very well. Obviously we want to do that, but you gotta have fun too.
Yeah. So earlier you mentioned the Giga Leaks, which was a massive leak with a bunch of different games, but most importantly to our channel, it was a lot of betas. It went through so many different names. I don't know what you would call it, because it's like Zelda 64, Ocarina of Time, 𝐓𝐷 Zelda, Master Quest. It went through various different stages where it was the complete disk drive game, and then it was a mix of a cartridge and a disk drive game for the bonus content, and then it was just a cartridge game. So it went through a lot of different names and a lot of different versions, but it was nice to actually see what could have been planned in those earlier stages before they had to maybe condense it all down to just a cartridge size. So on that note, if anyone is interested in any of the beta or unreleased Zelda videos that we've done, usually in the form of a top 10 list, unless it's something that we discuss on the podcast in a more discussion style video, like we did with the Game Boy Advance Wind Waker remake. That was like
that was way back in the day.
They didn't really get much at all done, just like a proof of concept basically. And then there's Dylan's Western rollout, whatever the name of it was, that started out as a horror tingle game for the 3DS. So videos like that where there's not much detail on, we just kind of discuss what it could have been. And the joke that I loved from that video was that I imagined it was kind of like that PT demo that was supposed to be like a Silent Hills teaser. Do you remember that, Tony? It was for PlayStation.
Yeah, and then it got canceled because there was the whole Kojima controversy.
Yeah, it was like
vaguely remember that. Okay.
Yeah, it was like right after he got. It was the E3 before he got released after the Metal Gear game or whatever. But it was a demo that some people said that the developers that he was working for didn't really know that he was going to announce it. That he just did it as like, this is something else I've been working on, to try to get fan support behind it in order to help convince that it was going to get made. I don't know. There's a bunch of weird conspiracy theory stuff behind it.
I kind of do remember that now, yeah.
But now PlayStation 3s that have the PT demo on it,
or the PS4,
or PS4, sorry, those consoles that people still have those PT demos on it are like auctioning off for thousands of dollars and stuff because it's so rare to just even have that software. So it's
so for the people in the chat that do know of PT, the joke that I liked was that if you could imagine PT where it's just one hallway that does like a straight 90-degree turn, and then there's another hallway, and you're just kind of stuck in this loop going back and forth, and you're trying to figure out all the different scary puzzles in the hallway, while there's like a ghost witch person that's randomly appears to scare you. But my joke was that the game, in my mind, because it was one of those situations where you just literally know nothing about it. You just know that it was something that was planned, and that's it. So we were trying to give an idea of what we thought the game could have been. And mine was, instead of a ghost chasing after you or a witch or whatever in the hallway, it would just be like Tingle chasing after you in the hallway. And
so you don't play as Tingle?
No. That's the horror game. It's just Tingle chasing you. But anyways, let's get started with the topic. So if anyone is interested in content on stuff like that, go check out Hard for Games. But as the main segment here, Tony, with all of the new discoveries and everything that's made, you've covered a lot of it on your channel. So I want you to give us a couple from your channel, videos that people might be interested in to go check out. We talked about some of the Zelda content a little bit, but you can tell us more about that as well.
Yeah, so, I kind of took a look at 2020's content, and there was a combination of stuff that I really enjoyed working on, and also stuff that I felt was just kind of more significant preservation-wise. I kind of combined them into a couple of different episodes and groups of episodes I thought that, your viewership might be interested in. So, kind of segueing into what we were just talking about.
Oh, not this again.
Listen to Tony talk about that. No.
I did it again.
It did it again.
So, for some reason, my Discord doesn't like me. So, like, I don't know if you guys have this issue, but whenever I'm on my laptop and I click off of Discord after like a minute or so, it'll like suspend it, like I'm not on it. So I gotta click back on it. But I think everything's good now. So, just start where you left off. Sorry about that.
Okay. Yeah, no worries. So for those of you that are unaware of what the GigaLeak was, it was a major Nintendo hack and release of basically source code and games. There's just a plethora of stuff from unreleased and early versions of SNES titles like Yoshi's Island to source code for Mario 64 and Zelda 64, Ocarina of Time, And what it originated from was the IQ division or company that works with Nintendo, which is functionally the sort of the Chinese variant of Nintendo. Because of Chinese gaming laws at the time, Nintendo had to work around different laws and get their games within the company. So they worked with IQ. So for example, like the IQ N64 player was just this handheld controller that plugged into your TV, and it came packed with different that you could purchase and download additional ones, for example. So it was an interesting system, but a lot of this came from sort of like a Chinese version of like the source code, for example. But with Zelda specifically, there was a lot of content in there that we had kind of seen before in screenshots, but never really got to explore. So there was the FST Dan, which is assumed to be the first dungeon that was recreated and populated with enemies. So luckily, I was able to get an individual by the name of Dr. Disco to like recreate and populate it for me, so I could go in and explore and show people. There was also a beta version of Kokiri Forest, or like the village, basically, which was massively larger than it was in the retail version of the game, like 4 or 5 times larger than it was in the retail version of the game, just shockingly big. All sorts of other content, like there was an outline, basic simple geometry for like a castle, but like no textures, no nothing else. Really some interesting things that were found in the GigaLeak, and luckily, just because of people being kind-hearted and compiling it, sending it my way, I was able to explore a little bit and kind of showcase it. So as far as like content on my channel, like that was a big one for me, because it was like, oh wow, like I finally get to like go explore all of these crazy places I never thought I would ever see, and here I was in some cases trying to scour the world for VHS footage content of these areas, and then here they are. Like now I'm playing in them, right? So what a drastic switch, So that totally changed up the type of content I was looking for in terms of like VHS and Laserdisc preservation as well, because it's like why do we need more VHS content of that unless we need more better details of like the HUD and stuff, like we have the area like verbatim compiled. So it was just sort of a very magical and illegal time for Nintendo, It was. Is there?
But with the GigaLeaks, you don't have that sweet track, that sweet song that came with the French VHS tapes.
Oh yeah.
Everyone knows exactly which one I'm talking about.
So you mentioned there was outlines for a castle. Was it around? Do you mean like the outside exterior of a castle, or like a room that would be inside of a castle?
No, the entire exterior geometry of a castle. So there was some footage or some screenshots of Link in like what seemed like a forest area with multiple trees, and he's shooting an arrow at a Poe. You remember that?
Yeah.
Screenshot. So if you look in the background, it's hard to see, but there's basically a wall, and people have determined that that's the wall of this castle. So I have like the object file. I can send it to you. You can open it in like Photoshop. You can open it in any sort of like object viewer. It's not very telling. It's literally like an untextured object that you could spin in around and see the basic geometry of from an exterior perspective. And as you know, as you're further away from something, especially on the N64, it's less and less detailed. So you can just see this outline of this strange castle, but there's nothing there.
Yeah. Do you think it was just an idea of like they could have potentially, like when that area was in the location that it would have originally been, that they had an idea to maybe put a castle there, but then once they put the Lost Woods or Kokiri Forest at a different area, now it's obviously on the complete opposite side of the map as the castle or the Temple of Time or anything like that?
I don't know. So like the castle has like a keep, and then it has like a tower, or like a wall, and then like a keep in the middle. People have suspected that maybe it's like the wind tower or something. I don't know where these come from, but like the geometry of the actual castle is bizarre. I don't know if it would have fit into being like a Hyrule castle or what exactly it would have been. So again, I'll show you, and then maybe we can do a collab where we showcase it, and then I also have a ROM somewhere where Link can run around the exterior of it.
Nice.
it's all shadows. It's all light and darkness.
Yeah.
So it's not like you're really like I'm exploring. It's like it's surreal. Like it's very interesting, but less exciting than you would think it was.
Yeah, it sounds like it wouldn't even classify, like it would be not beta, but like pre-alpha.
It's super, yeah. It's
Yeah.
very early, very early.
But whenever you first mentioned the castle, what came to my mind was that Miyamoto in the early stages was talking about how he didn't necessarily know how powerful the 64 hardware was. So they were going to include all of Zelda 64 inside a huge castle like Super Mario 64. So I was thinking maybe it could have been left over from that, but then I don't know if that would have to be like a massive, massive castle or what it would have looked like. But
it's hard to tell how big the interior would have been because it's a very. I mean, when Link is running around the outside, it takes a long time to get around it. But at the same time, you have no landmarkers, so maybe I was just circling it 5 times. You know what I mean? Like it's you'll see when I
also
show it to you.
Video game logic. Who's to say it wasn't really technically like bigger on the inside than the outside?
The castle is small from the outside, but like you get in it, it's like it's very dense for what it is. But yeah, no. So the Giga Leak was definitely a big one. Another one that I was surprised to learn that I did in 2020, because the original question when you send over the question, so it's 2020 videos, was we did a Pokemon Center New York reservation. That seems like a million years ago, but actually it was in January of 2020, about a year ago now. And for those of people in the audience unaware, Pokemon centers are throughout the world. Basically, they sell Pokemon merch, and they have different events and stuff for players to come and play and receive rare Pokemon and just spend money, right? There was one in New York. It lasted basically around from Gen 2 to the beginning of Gen 3, and then it ran out of money, and it became the Nintendo store that's in New York. So it kind of converted over to what we currently have.
Yeah.
So there were distribution events there, and there were machines, kiosks, where basically you had a GameCube in it with special software, a special writer unit that was kind of like a GBA, but it wasn't. And then like special information on 2 memory cards that all of them together basically functioned like a key to allow users to put in their cartridges and get a specific Pokemon Center New York Pokemon. And a former employee kept some of this information, kept some of the stuff, knowing that it was just going to be destroyed, contacted us, and we were able to preserve it. And I worked with Retro Alley, who's a big Pokemon fan. We worked with the Pokemon Project Pokemon event research team and did a lot of like the data collection and stuff on it. We worked with Grace and Julie from PokemonCenterNewYork.com. They had done some previous history of the center. But basically, it was a way for people to get these ultra rare Pokemon. And we got a bunch of these game save files and we put them online, so you could just like, instead of having to go back in time and getting these rare Pokemon, you could, experience it for yourself without having to do any of that stuff that's impossible. So it was a very interesting, eye-opening journey, which I had never been a huge Pokemon fan, but apparently for people that were, this was like their holy grail.
This was their beta Zelda 64.
Yeah. Pokemon does all these events and stuff, and then a lot of it was just completely lost to time. So it's people want to check that out. It's on our channel, Hard for Games. There's just search Pokemon Center Hard for Games. We did like 3 or 4 videos on it. And there's a lot of information there, but it's all very weird and interesting how it all went down. And then I guess to another one, I was kind of going between 2 different discovery / episodes. So for me, one of the more fun episodes, I got to play around with an Ultra 64 controller, which was like a prototype N64 controller, was called the Ultra 64. So it had different branding, different feel, like the buttons were different. Like it was really a blast from the past. So that was really fun. But as far as discoveries go, a buddy of mine, Andrew, sent over a beta of Mario Artist Paint Studio. And I was able to go through and with a team of Luigi Blood and him, catalog a bunch of differences between it and retail. And for those of you who don't know, it's a disk drive game. So it came on a blue development disk. It was dumped. And it was really interesting to finally get my hands on a prototype or a beta earlier version of a disk drive title. So that had always been a little dream of mine, and it was really interesting to be able to dive into it.
In the Mario Artist series, they're similar to the Super Nintendo version that came on Mario Paint with the mouse. But then with the Nintendo 64, instead of just the one game, didn't they have like 6 or 7 different games planned that would all like work together, but then only some of them released?
Yeah, pretty much. So Mario Paint Studio is the most similar to Mario Paint on the SNES per the title, but they also released Polygon Studio, where you could basically create polygons. You can make your boats and sail it around or whatever. And then there was also Talent Studio, which was an animation suite. And so these were, imagine like a Photoshop or a Premiere Pro or like an Audition, like these Adobe Creative Suites. Imagine like Nintendo did it, but like in the Nintendo 64 era. And then there's also a fourth disc, a communication disc, that you could swap content between them. But per your point, they were also going to be creating a game maker and like a text editor program and a music maker. So if you were making Polygon from Paint, you created a texture and then imported it to your Polygon and then animated it with Talent Studio, and then you were able to add music and then you put it into the game maker. You were essentially, they were trying to allow you to create games with your 64 disk drive, but it never got that far.
Yeah, like a very technical version of Super Mario Maker, but with like all of the different elements separated.
Yeah, like a much too complicated version of Mario Maker. And Mario Maker is that was kind of the in a way the genesis of like Mario Maker, but Mario Maker is a much better implementation of it, because do you really want to have to buy 10 discs on N64 and swap meticulously between them to kind of create something? You know what I mean? Like ultimately it wouldn't have worked, and it didn't, right? So Mario Maker is a much better result of that ambition, I feel.
All right, before we move on to our next topic, which is going to be our predictions for the 35th anniversary of Zelda, you mentioned the Pokemon Center employees they'd sent you the stuff for you to preserve this information. So what is something that you think of as like the most insane or the coolest thing that you've had someone send you to either be verified or tested or preserved? And I also imagine it can be kind of stressful, because in some of your videos you've mentioned how easy it is on the blue development disks to erase the data, right?
Not for me personally to erase the data. I mean, I'd have to really screw up. I'd have to be like specifically like, oh, right over this. But time and mishandling of those things can definitely destroy the data. So yeah, I mean, it can be, but normally it's more stressful knowing that it's not preserved. You know what I mean? Like there are a couple people who, no one owes me a game to dump. They're all their own content, so it's like they can send it to me or they don't. It's up to them. But there are some people. I just had to preface it with that, because I was going to say there are some people who keep saying that they have these undumped games, and they're like, yeah, I'm going to send it to you. I'll get around to it this or then or whatever, and they're like totally undumped games, and it's like, not that I'm afraid of like data rot or anything like that, but like if there's a house fire like this person has, or like a flood, or like it's more nerve-wracking for me to be like, I really wish that they would get on this. Like if they either have me dump it or don't, but if you're going to say that you're going to have me do it, let me do it so it can be done, and preserved. That kind of makes me more nervous than anything else. But in terms of wow, crazy factor stuff, probably that Ultra 64 controller that I mentioned just would be probably the craziest in my mind, just because I think like 2 of them exist.
Wow.
And growing up, I had always thought of the N64 as the Ultra 64 because that was the original branding. It was like so sexy, like it was like a cool name, and I'd always been so disappointed as a kid when they switched it over. I mean, it really doesn't matter, but in my brain, my childhood brain. So being able to like handle it, I thought was like really cool. Like I just thought it was like really, even though functionally it's a controller, but being able to like mess with it a little bit was personally like pretty exciting. I don't know if anybody else felt that way. But,
Do you know if it was? I don't know if there's any way that you'd be able to tell, but like, was it in like a U.S. version, or could you tell if it was like from the Japanese makers, or?
all of them at that point in time were Japanese, I would guess.
Yeah.
It had a RJ11 connector, so not an RJ11 connector is your like a phone jack. So it didn't connect into a regular N64. Like we had to take the components and put it into an N64 controller to be able to utilize it. So all of those were like being connected with basically you had your indie Silicon graphics workstations with your Ultra 64 dev like motherboard that you put into them, and then you plug in the RJ11 adapter. So where that was being utilized, it definitely wasn't for show anywhere because it wouldn't have an RJ11 adapter, but it probably was being used for development in Japan or somewhere by some very early onboarded, possibly third-party developer, but likely first-party.
That's what I was gonna say. Is like, do you think there is the chance that someone at Nintendo could have been using it to like actually make some of these early games?
Yeah. If only tech had memory. Unfortunately, it doesn't. So we really have no idea.
Did the
it could have been? Who knows? I mean, it was for a development system, is what it was for. So yes, probably there was some development going on with it. Who knows?
Did the back extension for the add-ons and stuff? Were you able to test with that? Because it's been a while since I've seen the video.
Because of the RJ11 connector. Actually, I don't think I put anything in the back of it. Maybe I was too afraid. I don't remember if I did or not. But we had to basically like showcase it as it was, and then take the housing for the joystick and put it into an N64 controller, and then mess around with that. So at that point, to really be able to get anything to work, control or Rumble Pack wise, it would have just been on an N64 controller.
Right. Oh, we got Sorry, there's a $2 chat. It says, what will the next Breath of the Wild trailer happen? All right, we will get to that in our next topic in just a second.
I have an exclusive information on that, actually. No,
Daniel's
nobody
knows.
Yeah. Well, to answer your question, I mean, I just think that the Ultra 64 was it was just a lot of fun for me personally. I don't know if it was a huge discovery or anything like that, but it was interesting. It was interesting to look into, and strange, like, to see the differences between the retail version and that. Like, it was much more of an adult-sized controller. The arms were longer. Everything was bigger. Like, it felt more appropriate in my adult-sized hands versus, like, an N64 controller, which is made, like, for more so, not necessarily exclusively for, but more so for children's hands. So, like, if you were to feel the difference, you kind of would know what I mean.
Do you think it was sized better for the adults that would have been using it to work on the games?
Possibly.
All right.
That's an interesting theory. I never thought about that. Yeah, it could have been. But I mean, the N64 controller isn't impossible to hold as an adult, so I mean, who knows?
All right. And
the designer was just a really big guy, and they're like,
"Yeah,
Don, you're too big."
Yeah, you're too big.
Remember, the rest of us are.
Yeah, exactly. Who knows?
All right,
Lost
Daniel.
in history, I guess.
I've been kind of taking this one over with all the questions. So, do you have anything for Tony?
I mean, I actually was going to ask a very similar question because, a lot of my favorite videos, you get these really cool things sent to you. Like, there was like a gold-plated Xbox, and then like you mentioned, the prototype.
No, he had that made himself for his birthday.
GBA as well, I think that you had gotten, and some other ones. So I don't know. That was going to be my next question, but I guess since Jesse took that one,
I'm sorry. You need to tell me to shut up.
Aside from the hardware side of things, you also get you do these little review videos or that kind of thing about some really cool mods. I know you did like some Zelda ones that I'm sure some people here have probably heard of as well, like Dawn and Dusk, I think was one, and the Missing Link. But is there any one of those mods or projects from other fans or whatnot that you've been sent that stand out to you, or personal favorites? Or
can we give a shout out to our friend Melon Speedruns?
Melon is my favorite.
No,
I don't know.
He comes on and he comes on and talks to us a lot about modding and things like that.
Oh, gotcha.
He's a national treasure, Melon, because he has like there's been so many times where I've been live streaming. Sorry to just derail this, but Melon has come onto my stream and he's in the chat. He's like, just DM me, I'll help you sort out this tech issue or whatever. He even my stream layout he made and sent to me I didn't ask him to do this. He's just such a genuinely amazing dude that he's just like, oh, your layout's this. Here's one that I made for you, and I'm like,
he does really good work, and he's a really genuine, nice guy.
he really is.
But in terms of like the mods, probably two more recent ones that your viewers might be interested in there was Star Fox 64 Survival, which is actually an Ocarina of Time mod. So basically, it swaps Link for Fox McCloud, and everything else is Ocarina of Time. But basically, it's like a gauntlet. So you have to survive like 30 days. You have to get to the 31st day, and you have to play the same map, which has different variations. And every day it's populated by very difficult randomized Ocarina of Time enemies. So it's like the hardest the game has to throw at you, it throws at you in the most inconvenient spots. And you start off with practically nothing. You have a sword, and that's it. And there's bomb flowers. And then you can get every time that you beat clear the field, you get a treasure chest. But most of the time, it's like 5 rupees. Every once in a while you get like a shield or something you can use, right? So every playthrough is a little bit different, and it's super challenging because like you think like, okay, it's the same playing field over and over again, might get boring, but it really forces you to maximize every square inch and figure out how you actually want to play and utilize the mechanics that are given to you. It's really interesting in that way. So it's like I need to utilize the geography in this way. I need to use this bomb flower to like whittle them down in such way, and then I need to hit them this here and then go away and then attack these. Like it's really like it forces your mind to really think, even though the Ocarina of Time battle mechanics are by today's standards certainly rudimentary, but it puts the pressure on.
So
for sure.
I've seen this video on your channel, but I've yet to watch it. But a quick question.
Jesse.
Everyone, I'm sure everyone already knows one of the biggest beta things, or most popular known beta elements of Ocarina of Time is how you can get the Star Wing to come in.
Well, the Star Wing, yeah.
Yeah, Star Wing. I almost said R. Anyways, is that in this game since it is Star Fox related, or is it left out?
That particular model isn't, but it was sort of the inspiration for combining the two. But in the beginning of the game, the story is like Fox has crashed on this weird planet, and you can see is like crashed R-Wing. So there's like a model of an R-Wing like off in the distance that you can't get to, and basically you just have to survive. But there's no flight or anything like that. There's no like shmup mechanics in it.
All right.
Do they use the model for Fox like in that? There's that intro cutscene in Star Fox 64 where they're running through the hallway, or did they pull it from somewhere else or custom make it? Do you know? Or
I think I asked if it was from Smash or if it was from there. I think it's from. Can't remember the answer to that question. I get asked. I don't recall off the top of my head, unfortunately. But it's comparable. It's a good model of Fox, and his tail pokes through the shield every once in a while. It clips, but aside from that. It's basically
Link's hat clips through his shield in almost every Zelda game, so
yeah,
it's forgivable.
Yeah. So the standard is set, but yeah. So basically, it's a Star Fox mod, but it's not. It's an Ocarina of Time mod, and it's definitely worth your time.
All right. Do you have any final questions, Daniel?
No, I think we've pretty much covered it. But I've been for those in the chat, I've been dropping links to some of Tony's videos in there, as he's mentioned them as well. So maybe I'll find that one and drop it too. But definitely worth checking out. They're very, very fun videos.
And for everyone watching the edited version of this, you can go to the description, and we'll have some of the videos that we've mentioned on his channel linked in the description below. So you can go check those out. And I guess, do you have any final thing for people to check out or to say?
On my end?
Yeah. Any particular video you want to promote?
Not in particular. I just, if this is the type of content that interests you, definitely check it out. We're always happy to see new faces over there. And, if you like Zelda modding and beta content and, that discovery when it comes to video games, we get a lot of that type of content in, and we're always really excited to showcase it.
Yeah, and I think you guys passed 80,000 subscribers not too long ago.
Yep, we did. We actually did a 80,000 sub giveaway. I got everything packed up and getting ready to send out all the prizes. We did a bad art competition. So we shot a video. I still need to edit it and release it to the world. But yeah, basically people created like really horrifying art of me and our team. And we picked the worst of the worst. And they won development gear. So
That's a unique way to do it.
Not a bad
picking,
prize.
Picking the best worst art.
Yeah, well, anyone can do good art, right? Or rather, excuse me, I'm sorry. Let me reverse that. Not everyone can do good art, but everyone can do bad art.
Yeah.
So that was why we went with it, because like, why? Plus, it's funnier that way.
Yeah, I could have if I would have known at the time. For some of the people that do know, for a while, I had a little bit of nerve damage in my hand. So if I would have known about this competition, I would have tried drawing something with my hand when I couldn't use it, and then submitted it.
That would have been perfect damage.
That's not a sentence you would say every day.
All right.
I mean, I hate to say that, but it would have been.
All right. So moving on to our next topic, and a lot of people in the chat have been asking about Breath of the Wild 2. I'm sure we'll touch on some of that, even if one of our predictions is just another trailer or a second trailer. Because who knows if it's actually going to come out ever.
But no one knows.
So